The distress beacon had been faint, almost lost in the cosmic static that plagued the outer reaches. Captain Mira Solon hadn't hesitated. Where others saw risk, she saw someone who needed help. The crashed shuttle lay crumpled against the canyon wall like discarded foil. Mira's boots crunched through the ash-gray sand as she approached, her environmental suit reading the atmosphere as hostile but manageable. Behind her, her ship's AI chirped warnings about unknown biological signatures. But she'd long ago learned to trust her instincts over algorithms. That's when she heard it. A sound that made her freeze mid-step. A whimper. Soft, broken, terrified. Mira moved faster, clambering over twisted metal until she found the source. Huddled in what remained of the cargo bay was something small and furred, no larger than a terrier. Its scales, yes, scales beneath the fur, shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed erratically with fear. 6 legs were tucked tight against its body, and crystalline eyes reflected her helmet light like twin moons. "Hey there," Mira whispered, keeping her voice low and steady. The creature flinched, pressing itself harder against the bulkhead. She'd seen species databases with thousands of entries, but this one was new. A predator, judging by the retractable claws and sharp teeth visible in its trembling jaw. Young, definitely young, and utterly, completely terrified. The shuttle's interior told the story. Scorch marks from weapons fire, empty harnesses, no bodies. Someone had taken the crew. They'd left this little one behind. "It's okay," Mira said, lowering herself slowly to the deck. She kept her movements deliberate, predictable. "Nobody's going to hurt you." The cub, she decided to call it that, made a sound like breaking glass. Its whole body shook with the force of its fear. Mira had been a soldier before she'd been a captain. She'd seen fear in 100 species and 1,000 eyes. But there was something about this moment, this creature, that reached past her training into something more primal, something human. She began to hum. It was an old melody, one her grandmother had sung when Mira was small and afraid of thunderstorms. The notes carried in her suit's external speakers, soft and rhythmic. The cub's crystalline eyes locked onto her. "That's right," Mira murmured between phrases. "Just listen." Slowly, carefully, she reached out one gloved hand. The cub's scales flared brighter, defensive patterns rippling across its small body. But it didn't run. "I know you're scared," Mira said, keeping her voice low and musical. "But I'm not like whoever did this. I'm here to help." The cub's trembling lessened just slightly. Its bioluminescence began to synchronize with the rhythm of her humming, a fascinating display of involuntary response that Mira filed away for later consideration. Right now, all that mattered was the fear in those alien eyes. She continued the melody, adding words now. They were in standard, meaningless to the creature, but the tone carried everything: safety, warmth, protection. The cub took one hesitant step forward, then another. Mira's heart hammered in her chest, but she kept her breathing even, her voice steady. When the small creature was close enough to touch, she very slowly opened her arms. "Come here, little one." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like wind through crystal chimes, the cub launched itself forward. Mira caught it against her chest, wrapping her arms around its trembling form. Through the suit's sensors, she could feel its rapid heartbeat. 2 hearts, actually, beating in counterpoint. The cub buried its face against her shoulder, and the shaking that had consumed it began to ease. She held it close and continued to sing. The melody shifted, became something new. Mira found herself weaving in fragments of songs from Earth. Lullabies, ballads, even a few bars of an old rock anthem her father had loved. The cub didn't know the difference. It only knew the feeling behind the sounds. Outside, 3 moons rose over the canyon. Inside the wreckage, a human held an alien child and sang softly into the gathering dark. When Mira's crew later asked why she'd risked contamination protocols, why she'd spent 3 hours in that shuttle with an unknown organism, she couldn't fully explain it. Humans had spread through the stars with their technology, their weapons, their clever minds, but they'd brought something else too, something that other species found both baffling and beautiful. Compassion that crossed species lines. The instinct to comfort that which suffers, even when logic says to stay away. The cub, Rickon as the translators would later reveal its name to be, had stopped shaking long before Mira carried it to her ship. But she kept singing anyway, A human voice in an alien world, offering the oldest comfort her species knew. When the Rican delegation arrived 3 days later, following the beacon Mira had repaired, they found their lost child asleep in the captain's quarters, curled against her leg while she worked. The matriarch, a creature twice Mira's size with scales that burned like stars, stared at the scene in wonder. "You held our young," she said through the translator, her voice full of something that might have been awe. "Rican is a predator born. Our kind do not tolerate the touch of strangers, especially in fear. It should have torn you apart." Mira looked down at the sleeping cub, now peacefully snoring with its face pressed against her knee. She smiled. "Maybe," she said quietly, "but I had to try." The matriarch's scales pulsed in a pattern that Mira's AI identified as profound respect. "Your species is strange, Captain Mira Solon. You reach out when others pull away. You sing when others would speak commands. You hold that which could harm you." "It's what we do," Mira replied simply. She stroked the soft fur between Rican's scales, and the cub's bioluminescence flickered contentedly. Someone needed help. That's enough. As the delegation prepared to depart, little Rican clung to Mira one last time. Its crystalline eyes met hers, and in that gaze was something universal: gratitude, trust, and the beginning of understanding. Mira watched the Rican ship depart from her bridge, and the words of an old Earth philosopher came to mind. "We rise by lifting others." The stars stretched out before her, infinite and cold. But somewhere in that vastness, a small creature would remember the human who found it trembling and chose to sing. That, Mira thought, was what humanity brought to the cosmos. Not just technology or ambition, but the simple, profound act of caring. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest gift of all.